The first human beings on this planet were female. They were androgynous. There were no men. There were no male folks on the planet at that time. They conceived on their own. They gestated on their own. They delivered on their own. And they nourished the child on their own. All their children were androgynous. It was several millions of years later that they start producing male and female as individual entities, and then the androgynous type declined and eventually died off, or maybe killed off by the males once the males realized that they had power over the female, physical power. Anyway, the male took over, as we know today, But there seems to have been some type of problem, because the human male is destructive. Well, sure he is. We see stockpiles of nuclear bombs. Enough nuclear power to destroy the earth 1,000 times over. That's destructiveness. That's destruction. This comes from a destructive mentality. You see, they have enough biochemical weapons to kill us all. Why? It's destructive mentality. The human makes decisions, determinations, reach conclusions, and he doesn't know the source of his decision making. So I can't do anything about this destructive impulse that he has. Well, we've been told by astrologers, astronomers, that we are in the age of Aquarius. And when a new age occurs, there's a change in the cosmic wind. There is an underlying change that occurs. So when we went from Pisces to Aquarius, there's a change. And by the way, we're probably still at the end of Aquarius. We're at the beginning of, we're at the end of Pisces, at the beginning of Aquarius. And I mentioned earlier that when these changes come about, the end and beginning of a cycle, sometimes there is disturbance in the world. Like today, for example. But anyway, there is an underlying change that occurs, that affects the human being. We can call it the cosmic wave, that has an impact on human physiology. It has an impact on human impulse. These impulses have an effect on the cerebral cortex, here, the top part of the brain, and they have an impact. These impulses have an effect on human decision making. What a person decides to do is influenced by the cosmic principle. And so, because the human does not control himself, does not know himself, doesn't know what he actually is, he doesn't control his cerebral cortex, he doesn't control his reproductive paraphernalia, These two things are very important to the human being. Of course, we know this. And the cerebral cortex has been called the devil's workshop. Wow. And we're not in control of it. That's why it is a devil's workshop. And so we need to learn to control ourselves so that when the cosmic principle impacts upon human physiology, we know ourselves. If we become captain of this ship and master of our soul, then we can control this cosmic energy when it enters our body. The same thing happens with our planet Earth. When cosmic energy comes to Earth, it falls under the laws of Earth. In other words, cosmic energy comes to Earth, obeys the laws of Earth. So when cosmic energy comes to the human body, it should obey the laws of the human body, which we should be aware of, we should be in control of. We should be the governor of what goes on within us. And we have all that we need to do that, but we're not doing it. We simply follow the impulses, which have an impact on our thinking and decision making. You see, we have become a slave to our impulses. We have become a slave to an out of control cerebral cortex. The human being is being outstripped by his own technology. The human being has become a slave to his technology, which also becomes a driving force in the life of the human. The only thing that can save planet Earth from what appears to be a type of doom, which, well, the change would be a change in civilization. The Earth is going to be destroyed no time soon. No, it'll be a change in civilization. But the only thing that can take us off the path that we're traveling, in terms of like the turmoil that we're going through and what Earth is going through, it would be the female. The male, you see, as a destructive entity, as the destructive entity that he is going to change course. The female can. If she, let's say, doesn't try to emulate the male, if she tries to follow behind the male, then she's not going to do us any good either. But I think what they will do is to chart their own course. They would have to. They know that men are destroying the planet, then they will chart their own course and save our planet. Or our civilization anyway will be finished. We might be finished too. We're planning to be here, but we'll be gone. So, if the female begins with her own course, she will ultimately, within the age of Aquarius, because the winds of Aquarius favors the female. So, okay, she comes up with her own course. But what happens now is that the male, who is only needed for one thing, or too if you bring in the destruction aspect. But he's only needed here to fertilize the female ovum. He's not needed for anything else. We don't need him to be destroying things. We don't need that. So we don't need him for anything. The female, at the beginning of our species, did it on her own, without the help of a male or any other. She did it on her own. And she'll have to go back to that. But wait a minute, what happens to the male? What happens to us men? Well, if we are needed for fertilization purposes, and if as we know, the androgynous female did her own fertilization, that she's going to sever the cord between herself and the male. This means that the human male disappears. That is, he will not survive as an individual entity, which he is today. All the female needs is to start producing semen. That she did millions of years ago. The male becomes her inner male reproductive system. That's all he is. That's all he is now, really, except for the destruction aspect. But that's all he is. He just is here to fertilize the female ovum. And that's all he does. Beyond that, he's a destroyer. So, when she starts reproducing on her own, which she is, here in the age of Aquarius, sometimes here in the age of Aquarius, this is going to start happening. But sooner than we think, probably. As I said, what happens to him, he becomes her inner reproductive reproductive member. That's it. Because that's all he's needed for. I know this may be hard to digest for a lot of people, but, we should look at certain facts, It's when I come up with these things, I come from, let's say, the Kimite mythology. This is where it comes from. Okay? So we know in the Kimite mythology that we see drawings, reliefs, etc., paintings of the netters, which the word netter is interpreted as God by the Westerners. But there's a vast difference between the Western concept of God and the ancient concept of netter. Well, we'll discuss that sometimes later. But anyway, the goddesses, the female netters, the nettert, and put a T on it and it gives us the female. Nettert becomes a female. Anyway, the female then, netters, referred to as goddesses, were depicted as having one breast. One breast. No breast on this side. No breast on this side. This indicates that she was androgynous. So the netters come to us in plain view as androgynous. Why? Well, the mythology, the Kimite mythology, is a mirror of the most distant past. Through this mythology, the Kimite mythology, we can know what happened relative to the human species in the ancient past, the most remote past. So here, because they depict the netters or the nettert with one breast, we see that the ancient humans, the most ancient humans, were androgynous. We live in a world of cycles. Things become and they return. And so when I say that the winds of Aquarius favor the female, I'm talking about a return. The male, let's face it, the male had his shot. He's just look like he's trying to destroy the planet. It appears that way because he can't stop. He can't stop what he's doing. And he's not going to. He's going to continue to do it. And like, well, they're making plans to go off to Mars or somewhere. They're not planning on stopping whatever's causing global warming, whatever other ailments are facing the planet Earth. They're not planning on stopping, they're just planning on leaving. Well, that's what's going on. All of us aren't going up there. So this tells me they're not going to stop. They're not going to make the change. Why? They can't. The human male cannot stop doing what he's doing that is destroying this planet. It is up to the human female. As long as she don't try to emulate the male. If she wants to follow in his footsteps, it's crazy. And she knows better. And I think that we can rely on her to make the change. Now, of course, when this change is made, like I said, she's cutting the umbilical cord. She's cutting the male off. She's realizing that she really don't need him. But he should not worry, because the only thing that he does is fertilize her ovum. And so he will be within her, fertilizing the ovum. You know, in ancient times, we read the mythology and we hear of the bull of the mother, talking about it within her. The bull of the mother. The bull's famous for its power of ejaculation and fertilization. And so here, the mother has what they call the bull of the mother within her. This tells us again that she was androgynous and she had the bull to fertilize her and bull within her. Yeah, that's what the bull of the mother was doing. This goes way back. Here again, though, this is an example of the androgynous type female that once roamed and ruled this earth millions of years ago. Well, she did wonders, you know, but she stopped producing the male. Eventually he took over, and because of his destructive character, we find ourselves in the fix that we're in today. You know, you should have no feelings about this one way or another. There's no morality involved. You see, we simply ride along or cruise along with the facts as they occur. Keep your feelings out of it.